And we are back. Welcome back to the Case Report, folks. This morning, it is a beautiful morning. This is actually taped in the evening, but we were playing it in the morning. We are here today on the King's Report with Mr. John Gibson, host of the John Gibson Show, a nationally syndicated radio program that provides top news coverage and features interviews with leading newsmakers. He joined Fox News in September of 2000, previously hosted The Big Story with John Gibson. Prior to joining FNC, Gibson was at MSNBC hosting the network's news talk programs, including News Chat, Internight. He also served as substitute anchor for CNBC's Rivera Live. Preceding the existence of MSNBC, Gibson hosted a news program for America's Talking. Before a stint at America's Talking, Gibson was a West Coast correspondent for NBC News Channel, where he supplied NBC affiliates with live reports on various breaking news events. Gibson also served as an NBC News correspondent based in California, where he provided extensive coverage of key news events, including the O.J. Simpson criminal trial, America's involvement in Mogadishu, Somalia, and invasion of Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas. Gibson is also the author of the New York Times bestseller, Hating America and the War on Christmas. Mr. Gibson, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we talked about during the break about some of the top news that is going on. And of course, one of the issues right now is the issue with Stephen Bannon, who has been, of course, who has left the White House administration. And there's been some shakeup, so to speak. Many of the alternative news side are saying that he was the leaker, and he is the one that is basically was trying to ruin the Trump campaign. The Drudge Report is linking to a CNN article right here, painting Bannon again as one that was shopping around for anti-Trump documents and dossiers in 2015, even long before Trump was going to be running. And so Bannon has been saying that he is still loyal to the Trump movement and to the freedom and sovereignty movement that Trump is leading, really worldwide. What are your thoughts on what's your breakdown on this issue with Bannon?
I think it's pretty well known that Bannon was talking to media people quite frequently, and a lot of people used him as a source, not me, but it's also part of the new Michael Wolff book that Trump himself was sitting in his room at night with his Big Mac and his cable TV set up and calling all his friends, none of whom had any compunction about speaking to the media. So it sounds like the White House was pretty leaky all over the place, including Bannon and probably including Trump himself.
Well, it's interesting because President Trump, especially with that Wolff's book, Fire and Fury, Trump has, disavowed, obviously, and said that he never met with Mr. Wolff, who claims that they met in the Oval Office and had a 3-hour interview. Trump is, of course, saying that he did not meet with him. And we have he mentioned Rupert Murdoch's, a work that Mr. Wolff wrote on Rupert Murdoch with many, incorrect statements that were made. Many people in the alternative news saying that the Wolff is a real yellow journalist, has no integrity, lies, makes up things, makes up quotes, etc. And of course, he's out there promoting his book furiously. But Trump is, of course, saying that he never had the conversations.
Well, I mean, just one thing. Michael Wolff said he spent a total of 3 hours, he thought, if he added it all up with Donald Trump over that whatever it was, 6-month period hanging around that White House. And he also said today he could quite understand that Trump, when he was talking to Michael Wolff, didn't think it was an interview. In other words, you can sort of picture this thing of Wolff's hanging around in the White House and he, bumps into Trump. He either gets in the Oval Office or he's in a hallway or something. And he's got a total of 3 hours with him. And I can see where he could get some material to use that Trump didn't even realize he was giving him. I understand Michael's history. I've interviewed him myself, and I understand what people say about his previous books, that he's a little fast and loose. But I also think that you can take an example like the story of election night when he describes Melania Trump as sobbing when they won. You know, Michael puts a spin on it that she was devastated they won, that she didn't want to win, didn't expect to win. But I don't think he knows that. I don't know how he would know that. She could be crying out of, you know, tears of joy. She could be crying out of relief that the campaign. I mean, who knows? But what I'm saying is, I think if you look at Michael's material, you'll see something in there that kind of looks like, oh yeah, that could happen. But what was the spin he put on it? What was the interpretation he put on it? And is there another explanation that may change the meaning a bit? You know, it seems to me that his writing is kind of like that. Now, is he a tabloidy kind of guy? Yeah, sure is. But you know, he was there. He was hanging around in Bannon's office for months at a time. And I'm guessing if you or me were hanging around in Bannon's office for 6 months, we'd have a book too.
Well, it's interesting because that's, I think, a lot of the stink in the alternative news community. Why did, or in the sort of liberty movement, why did Bannon even have this guy in there? He knew this guy would probably be hostile towards the president, and had this guy in there, you know, having, like you said, it could be direct or indirect access. But if we go on the words of the president, he's saying basically, you know, no, I didn't spend time with the guy. But again, I definitely see if he's hanging around there, then he could probably, you know, exchange a couple words here, a couple words there, and then piece it together.
In a group. You know, be in a group that's standing around talking to Trump. I mean, you know, you kind of picture those things. I mean, look, Trump says, I never let the guy interview me. That's probably true. Michael says he spent 3 hours with him, a total over 6 months. Now that's, you know, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. That's probably true too.
Says this will bring down the presidency, or potentially could bring down the presidency.
Yeah, I know. Well, that kind of exposes his motive, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the left has been saying they've been using the whole Russiagate, that started collapsing. They just started trying to use the racist thing, that collapsed, the misogynist thing, that was collapsing. You know, black unemployment is the lowest on record. I mean, Trump is, you know, pushing up the Dow Jones now over 25,000. I mean, he's doing so many things. And it seems like everything he does, they're just trying to sabotage him and or just spin it negatively. There's a poll out that shows, by Pew, I think, that shows that like 90% of the coverage on Trump plus has been negative.
Yeah, no, no, they're out to get him. Look, the weird thing about this is, let's say you believe Michael's book, let's say you believe all of this armchair psychiatry people are doing, and, you know, Trump is, let's just say, for argument's sake, he's a complete idiot, he's incompetent, he's not up to the office. Why do we need a president? Because everything is going great, as you say. The Dow is up, ISIS is dead, the NOCOs are on the run, the jobs are doing great. It's the lowest unemployment rate ever for black people. Well, if this guy is so incompetent, why would we need a smart guy? I think the answer is that he's not incompetent, he's not stupid, he's not a mental case. And he's just the kind of guy that the left hates. And even though things are going great, even for them, they'll dream up anything to run him out of office. I mean, and believe me, if they win the House back in 2018, they'll impeach him.
Well, you know, that's interesting because, as you said, they are just trying to do everything. They're, you know, of course, for the first year, my goodness, we had so many violent outbreaks from the left, so many violent clashes with Antifa and George Soros-funded organizations, Black Lives Matters, Linda Sarsour leading the Women's March, but she supports Sharia law. I mean, just total radicals. Antifa now on the domestic terrorist list. I mean, these are real radicals that were saying that Trump is a fascist. Meanwhile, they are the most fascist, most misogynistic, most dangerous towards a free society that we've seen in decades. I mean, when's the last time you see all those kind of riots happening in the street where people, you know, college students were getting beat over the head by guys that are masked, dressed up in ninja suits? I mean, it was just insane, waving like a hammer and sickle flags.
Well, I'm old. I've kind of seen some of that stuff, but it goes back a number of decades. Yeah, you're right about that. No, the Antifa people are terrible. There's this Yvette Falarka in Berkeley who is the head of something called By Any Means Necessary. She just got slapped with a judgment against her where she supposedly has to pay a conservative guy she was harassing $178,000. It might take some of the wind out of their sails. Antifa is a terrible group. I mean, you're absolutely right. Just awful. And my personal opinion is that when there's a demonstration or something where Antifa shows up, they should be placed under arrest immediately if they're masked. If you wear a mask in public, you should be subject to arrest. And especially in that kind of situation, because the big problem is they commit violence and there's no way to tell who did it, and we need to find out who did it.
It's amazing because, like many in the cities, even in Berkeley, for example, police were standing down. They were just watching from the sidelines, and these guys were allowed to just literally beat people with sticks, including younger women that were getting literally mauled with sticks.
Yeah, well, they were under orders from the mayor. Look. I mean, who knows what the personal politics of the cops are in Berkeley, but I would guess they're not quite as liberal as the Berkeley mayor or the chancellor at the UC Berkeley campus. And those people are perfectly happy to see conservatives beat up. They have a fairly long history of it. So, look, it's totally shocking. I hate it. It's awful, but it's not very surprising.
Well, so liberal and so tolerant to want to see people get beat up, I guess. But it's a terrible, terrible state of affairs. And for a lot of young people, it's the first time that they see how, volcanic this political, bifurcation has become, how divided our country has become. And many young people, there's articles this morning that we were covering that young people are turning to Satanism because they're saying that they feel they need to gather power from the occult. Wouldn't it be better to turn to God and Jesus Christ instead of Satan, who will lead them to destruction and to desolation?
Look, anything but what you describe is right. I personally believe that people of churches tend to be much more civilized and well behaved than the people we're talking about. So, if religion is a part of their outlook, that would be a much better activity. Yes.
Well, it's so interesting because for the longest time, it almost felt like it was a sin and it was a crime to be Christian. I mean, we had hundreds of thousands of Syrians, Christians that were getting murdered, slaughtered. ISIS was on the move, expanding under Obama. The black flag was spreading all the Middle East, moving into, Europe under Merkel. I mean, the migration crisis there, which is orchestrated. I mean, it was insane to see just radical Islam just spreading. And Trump literally took it out in a year. I mean, it's incredible what the president has been doing.
No, it really is. And, you just never hear it mentioned anymore, do you? We spent, I don't know how many years it was, 6, 8, 5, whatever, of watching people's heads cut off, watching them burned in cages, watching them drowned in cages, watching them being crucified, watching mass executions and dumping bodies into graves. And the president said, gee, we really can't do much about it. It'll play itself out eventually. Well, that isn't what happened. And what happened was James Mattis said, we have a policy of annihilation and we're going to surround them and kill them. And it appears they've done a very good job. By the way, there was a story the other day out of Iraq that former ISIS members are being grabbed and put on trial. The trial usually lasts 15 to 20 minutes, followed by an immediate hanging. So they're pretty brutal there in the Baghdad government as well.
Well, it's so amazing because you have these American leftist feminists, right, who will demonstrate with their bras off and wearing hijabs. Meanwhile, in Iran and in ISIS-controlled areas, as soon as the women receive freedom and liberation from ISIS, they take the hijab off. It's a symbol of oppression and slavery for the last 1,100 years. And it's incredible that the left in America, the young people are so brainwashed in these Marxist professor schools being indoctrinated that the left should, basically protect radical Islam and medieval Stone Age, misogynistic, pedophile allowing, child marriage allowing religion and radical, political ideology. And they think
I
that.
have to ask something. Do you mind if I interrupt you? When we started at the beginning, I asked you about the crown you're wearing, which is you're a Second Amendment supporter. But I just have to know, as a detail, has the powder been removed from those shells?
Yes, it has, sir. Yes, it has.
Okay, all right,
There's no powder
I
here,
didn't
my
want,
friend.
I didn't want to be here. In a moment of heat, they all start going off.
No, the powder has been removed. The Bible says, "Let no
Okay.
man take thy crown." Revelation 3:11, right there. So
They're totally inert. You're wearing an
yes,
inert crown
no.
of 2-3 shells and 30-30 shells.
yes. There's no
Okay,
powder.
good. All right, I feel better. Go ahead.
Yes, there's not going to be an accident here.
Okay, good.
But so you have like this. It's amazing how the Western feminists have been so brainwashed to believe that this is something they can ally with when if allowed into the country, if allowed into the Western civilization, it is something that will take over and repopulate and completely remove any vestige of the civilization they enjoyed.
Look, I mean, there's a bunch of groups. The feminists you're talking about, GLAAD groups, the LGBT groups, a lot of those who opposed Donald Trump's policy and his immigration ban would suffer greatly if the Muslim community became as large and as, what would be the word, aggressive as, let's say, it is in Britain. So I think those people tend to take positions that are self-defeating, and who knows, maybe they'll come to their senses one day.
Well, we're headed to Switzerland in a couple of weeks. We're going to be meeting up with Mr. Larry Pratt, the Director Emeritus of Gun Owners of America, out there talking about European gun rights. That's something very significant, we believe, that has to be talked about across the world, really. We enjoy here the Second Amendment here as Americans, but really human rights and natural rights don't only extend to Americans, they extend to people of the whole world. And when we talk about the right to self-defense and self-protection, it is a natural law, a natural right for a human being to be able to defend oneself from violent interruption and violent intrusion while they're trying to just live their life peacefully. We're so happy, we're so grateful that President Trump has been moving along with, fighting for a national reciprocity, which will allow gun owners to, allow their CCW permits to be reciprocally received in the other states in these United States of America. I mean, it's gone through the Congress. It's now, I guess, prepared to go through the Senate, through the House, and it's prepared now to go through the Senate. And that would be a tremendous change.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, the state you're in, that you are next to, New Jersey, it's pretty tough. It's I just don't know if that nationwide CCW thing is going to fly. I mean, states. I mean, look at what's going on with California now and Colorado. They want to exercise their states' rights by making pot legal in sanctuary cities, and they're going to try to extend that to gun control as well. So I don't have a lot of confidence that is really going to fly. I'm sure Trump will propose it, and I'm sure that there will be some members of Congress who support it, but I'm not going to bet a lot of money on it passing or standing up before the Supremes.
Well, so it's kind of a little scary, and there's a lot of anxiety because you have 100 people, senators, that will basically be able to determine whether or not 150 million gun owners can be free to move safely around the country with their legal right to be able to defend themselves and carry a firearm on their person. So
look, Dana Lash is a friend of mine, and she's the national spokesperson for the NRA. And I used to be on her show, and she's, of course, much more familiar with these issues than I am. I just have a feeling, and I could be wrong, I just have a feeling that in the area of, pot, sanctuary cities, guns, I think states' rights might prevail. Now, I'm not betting on it. I won't put any money on it. I mean, I don't want to be the guy predicting the Supreme Court, but it just seems to me that it's such a long ingrained situation in these states that you have to obey our gun laws whenever you enter our state. I have a hard time imagining that changing much.
Yeah, that's a really important because there's a lot of historical sort of cultural, I guess historicity with a particular anti-gun culture or pro-gun culture, depending on the location and locality. I
I
guess.
live in Texas. I mean, I get it. I got a bunch of guns. All my neighbors are armed. Nobody thinks anything. I mean, I see guys, going around open carry. I think it's kind of silly. That's the first guy that's going to get shot. But I just, I get it, what it's like in a gun-friendly state. And I also lived in California a long time and New Jersey, and I also get it what it's like in a gun-unfriendly state. And
Right.
I just think that those states are going to struggle mightily to retain their particular outlook. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Well,
I wouldn't make a hard and fast prediction.
it seems like a very realistic prediction. We're just praying. We're just praying that it goes to the Senate. There's a move of the Holy Ghost, and it gets to the Senate. So law-abiding citizens can be free to be able to be safe wherever they go, and our daughters can be free wherever they go. It's just a matter of human rights and human safety. And again, having good people be able to have the protection on them wherever they go. But on another note, we had Hillary Clinton promising while she was on the campaign trail that the first thing she was going to go after was the Second Amendment, that she would try to disarm the public. This is, of course, something that George Soros, her top campaign funder, a former Nazi collaborator, somebody very anti Second Amendment, anti-gun rights, etc. But it seems like when you look at history, these totalitarians always target the citizens' arms, their ability to defend themselves from not only animals and deers and antelopes and hunting, sport of hunting, but against tyrannical, forces, just like our founding fathers did. If Oprah runs in 2020, which is, of course, the biggest news on Drudge. Just right now on Drudge, it says, yes, she can, is the headline for drudgereport.com right now as we speak. Yes, she can. It has a big picture of Oprah there, and it looks like they're preparing her. I mean, we pretty much know her position on the Second Amendment. Do you think if she runs, that she will be as radical as Hillary Clinton in trying to disarm America?
Yeah, I do. Look. You can't be the choice of Hollywood without being very anti-gun, except in the movies. I mean, you can have all the guns you want in the movies, all the guns you want on TV. Just don't carry them around in real life. No, she'll be very anti-gun. Look, I looked it up once, and now I'm a little fuzzy on the figures, but I seem to recall that if you looked up all the hunting licenses in this country and assume every one of those owns a gun, that you probably have the largest army on the planet in the United States. And it's always been a thought, I think, that in fact, I know when in World War II, the thought of invading the United States was pretty scary to those who would like to have done it because of all the people that have guns, and it's just it would be very hard to disarm them. We're not like the Canadians and the Australians who hear a decree from the government that it's time to turn in your guns, and they just show up and turn in their guns. So that's not the American culture, and I just don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think they're going to be able to, interpret the Second Amendment to mean a militia. It's a right that's been upheld many, many times. I don't think people are going to have to worry about losing actual gun rights. Now, would they, same as the First Amendment, somewhat limited? Is there going to be a limitation on the kind of gun you can have? Probably, and it's silly. I mean, I have a 22 semi-automatic rifle, and it functions exactly as an AR-15. It's a semi-automatic, one pull, one shot, one pull, one shot. If there are countless deer rifles out there that are one pull, one shot. Are they going to be able to ban semi-automatic weapons, as you hear from California and from Jersey and New York whenever one of these things happens? No, it's not going to happen. Now, these cosmetic aspects of guns, like the stock, the color, the magazine, some of that. I mean, it's limited once before. It's possible to be limited again, but I don't think there's going to be any real change in Americans' gun rights.
Well, that's sobering because the way Hillary Clinton was ramping it up and Obama was on, as you said, passing different laws on magazine capacity.
Gorsuch.
Yes, Gorsuch is in there.
I mean, look, you're right. If they could get their way, they would do it. I just don't think they can get their way.
Well, that's not only sobering, that's very encouraging. That's very encouraging, especially as they're now trying to promote Oprah to now be the riposte to President Trump in 2020.
Wouldn't it be fun to watch Oprah run against Donald Trump?
Like an NBC, a get together.
No, I mean, this would be the most fun ever. That would just be great. I mean, I hope you wouldn't win, but it'd just be hysterical.
You'd have Trump on one side saying CNN is fake news, and Oprah saying no, it's real news.
Well, what about it's like poor old Joe Biden? He's going to lose his turn, and Bernie's going to lose his turn, and all these guys. They're going to start making some moves on Oprah. If she thinks she's going to get away without going into what is the relationship between Stedman and Oprah anyway? I mean, wait till they start doing their opposition research on her.
That's true. They're going to open a whole can of worms, if she's running for president. Goodness gracious. Oh, my goodness. There's so many things we'd love to pick your brain about. I know you got to get running real soon. Is there particularly, we've been hearing on the alternative news, and just want to get your quick view of that, is that the people on the inside saying that 2018 Julian Assange will be given safe haven in the U.S. Some of the predictions they're talking about, get your breakdown on them. Julian Assange will be let back to the U.S., have safe haven here. A second on the table was that Trump will potentially trade Miles Kwok, who is the billionaire Chinese billionaire that has refuge in New York City, and that Trump will trade him basically to the Chinese government who wants him, and get permission basically to take out the Kim regime in North Korea. What are your views on Assange and North Korea?
I can't believe Assange should get any kind of asylum here in this country. The CIA wants his head on a platter, and they're not over it, and I don't think they should be over it. And so, if I was Julian Assange, I wouldn't set foot in the United States of America. As for the Kwok thing, it just seems very unlike the U.S. government, and to tell you the truth, very unlike the Chinese government. I mean, yeah, they want him really bad, but they want Kim really bad too. They don't want to see a unified Korean peninsula. So I can't believe they'd trade one guy for a whole country. That just seems a little far-fetched.
Interesting. Well, it is 2018, and it is crazy. It's off to a crazy start.
Let me see what you look like without your crown. Oh yeah, okay. Right.
I got a nice bald head. That's by choice. It's not by nature. It's by choice.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Gibson, for joining us. We know you got to get running soon. We thank you so much for your time. We know you're so busy. We will be right back, folks. Stay with us on the King's Report.